My name is Loretta. 6 months ago, I was sleeping in silk sheets, the kind that cost more than most people's cars. Today, I'm standing in a polyester uniform that smells like rancid fryer oil, my 68-year-old arms aching as I learn to balance plates. The irony isn't lost on me. When my husband Leonard died last spring, I thought the worst part would be losing the man I'd loved for 43 years. I was wrong. The worst part was discovering that our entire life was a lie, a carefully constructed stage play where only he knew the script. Loretta, table 4 needs their check. Simone, the shift manager, barked from across the diner. She's younger than my late daughter would have been, but she speaks to me with the exhausted patience one reserves for a difficult child. In this new world, I suppose I am one. I fumbled for the receipt book, my arthritic fingers struggling with the thin carbon paper. My back throbbed, a constant dull pain that had become my new companion. My feet felt like swollen bricks inside my supposedly comfortable shoes, but I needed this job. When the lawyers finished picking the bones of Leonard's estate, when the creditors took the house, the cars, and even my wedding ring, this $20 an hour position at Milo's Diner was all that stood between me and a cardboard box under the overpass. The couple at table 4, young and oblivious, were discussing a weekend trip to wine country. They barely glanced up as I dropped the check. The man left a $2 tip on a $50 bill. I smiled, a brittle movement of my lips, and said, "Thank you, come again." I couldn't afford not to. As I cleared their plates, I saw my reflection in the greasy window. My gray hair, once styled weekly at the city's most exclusive salon, was now pulled back in a severe, limp ponytail. The fine lines around my eyes weren't fine anymore. They were deep trenches, dug by grief and humiliation. I looked exactly like what I was, a tired old woman who had fallen from a great height. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. "We're getting a new girl today," Simone announced during the afternoon lull, tapping on her phone behind the register. "Malia. She's young, so be patient with her." I just nodded. I remembered my own first day, the crash of a full tray of sodas, the snickers from the other waitresses, the whispered nickname, the Duchess. They weren't wrong. I had been a duchess, and now I was a pauper. The sting of it was sharp and constant. Malia arrived just as the dinner rush began. She couldn't have been older than 22, with beautiful dark skin and bright, intelligent eyes that held a flicker of nervousness. She moved with a natural, fluid grace that no finishing school could ever teach. "Loretta, show Malia the register," Simone ordered, already disappearing into the kitchen to yell at the cook. I walked Malia through the basics: how to split checks, how to add the daily special, how to void an order. She listened intently, her brow furrowed in concentration. She asked smart questions. She didn't seem flustered by the chaos of the dinner rush, the clatter of plates, the constant shouting. When a customer at table 7 snapped at her for forgetting his extra ranch, she handled it with a calm poise that I, after 6 months, still couldn't muster. "You're a natural at this," I told her later, as we stood in the cramped break room. Malia smiled, a genuine, warm expression that lit up her face. My grandmother always said customer service is just treating people like family, even when they're acting like toddlers. "Your grandmother sounds like a wise woman." "She was," Malia said, her smile fading slightly. "She raised me after my parents died. Taught me everything I know about strength." A shadow passed over her face. "She passed away last year." I felt a familiar pang. "I'm sorry for your loss. Losing the person who shaped you, it leaves a hole that never quite fills." "Thank you," she said softly. "She left me this." Malia's hand went to her throat, touching something under the collar of her uniform. That's when I saw it. The world didn't just stop, it tilted on its axis. Hanging from a delicate gold chain was a pendant I had not seen in over 40 years. It was an antique, a small but flawless emerald surrounded by a spray of tiny diamonds set in an intricate mounting that I knew better Then I knew my own face. It was unmistakable. My hands began to shake violently. The styrofoam coffee cup I was holding slipped from my grasp, splashing scalding liquid across the linoleum floor before shattering against the wall. "Are you okay?" Malia jumped up, grabbing a wad of paper towels. But I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I just stared at that necklace, my mind screaming. It was impossible. It couldn't be. "Where?" I whispered, the word catching in my dry throat. "Where did you get that necklace?" Malia looked down at the pendant, her hand closing around it protectively. "This? It was my grandmother's. She said it was the only thing of value she ever owned. Why? Do you recognize it?" I couldn't answer her. How could I explain? How could I tell this sweet-faced girl who was patiently wiping up my spilled coffee that the necklace around her neck was a lie? My knees gave out, and I sank heavily onto the plastic bench. The air was too thin. I was suffocating. "Mrs. Loretta? Should I call someone? You're as pale as a sheet." I forced myself to look at her, to really look at her, and for the first time I saw what I should have seen immediately. It wasn't just the necklace. It was her eyes. The shape of them, the intelligent light behind them. It was the curve of her smile, the way she tilted her head when she was listening. She had Leonard's features. Softened, yes, but they were his. "No," I managed to say, my voice a cracked whisper. "I'm fine, just tired." But I wasn't fine. I was shattered. As Malia helped me up, her hand gentle on my arm, the full, terrifying weight of the truth settled on me. That necklace had belonged to Miranda, Leonard's first wife, the woman I had only learned about after Leonard's death, mentioned in a single dry legal document as part of the probate. The estate of Leonard, first marriage to Miranda, deceased. Leonard had told me he was a widower, that his first wife had died young, tragically. He'd said it was too painful to talk about. I, young and in love, had respected his grief. I had never asked questions. For 43 years, he had never mentioned her name. He had never told me she had given birth to a daughter whose existence he had erased from our life, from my life, as if she had never been born. I drove home to my tiny rented apartment in a daze, the steering wheel slick in my sweating palms. One thought echoed in my mind, louder than the rattling of my old car's engine. This girl, Malia, wasn't just wearing Miranda's necklace. She was their granddaughter. She was the living, breathing proof of the secret Leonard had taken to his grave. And by some cruel twist of fate, she was working the evening shift at Milo's diner, and she was calling me Mrs. Loretta. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that flash of green and gold. I saw Leonard's eyes staring back at me from Malia's face. By dawn, one thing was clear. I needed to know the truth, not just for me, but for her, even if it destroyed us both. The next few days at the diner were torture. I watched Malia trying to be casual, trying to hide the tremor in my hands every time she refilled my coffee. I created opportunities, moments in the break room, lulls in the dinner rush. "Tell me more about your grandmother," I'd say, my voice strained with false interest. Malia, open and kind, was happy to talk. Her name was Ramona Wallace. She was the strongest person I ever knew. Was she from around here? No, she moved us here from back east when I was little, said she wanted a fresh start, somewhere warm. The story she told was heartbreaking in its simplicity. She believed she was an orphan. Her parents, Selena and Mitchell, had supposedly died in a fiery car crash when she was just a baby. Ramona, a distant cousin or friend, Malia wasn't even sure, had adopted her through a private arrangement. There were no official records, Malia said, polishing silverware, her voice tinged with a familiar sadness. No birth certificate with their names, no family history. Grandma Ramona said it was better that way. She said my mother was beautiful and kind, and my father was smart and successful. She said they would have loved me. Smart and successful. The words sent a chill down my spine. That's how people had always described Leonard. Did she ever mention their names? I asked, my voice tight. Malia shook her head. She said the past was meant to stay buried, that what mattered was building a good life. She touched the necklace, an unconscious, absent gesture. This was the only thing she kept from before. She said it belonged to my mother. She said someday it might help me understand where I came from. That weekend, I did something I hadn't had the strength to do since the funeral. I went to the storage unit. It was the only thing the creditors hadn't taken, a 10x10 cubicle filled with the personal effects they deemed worthless. Old photo albums, college yearbooks, boxes of tax documents from decades ago. I had kept it, paying the monthly fee with my meager tips, because I couldn't bear to let the last physical proof of my 43-year marriage be thrown in a dumpster. The air in the unit was stale and hot. I ripped open the first box, labeled Taxes 1990-2000. My hands were shaking as I sifted through brittle manila folders. I found it buried in a folder for $19.99, a receipt. Not a tax document, but a carbon copy from a ledger. Payment to R. Wallace Services, $15,000. It was filed under charitable contributions, but it felt wrong. 1999, the year Malia would have been born. My heart hammered against my ribs. I kept digging. I found more. Monthly payments, every single month for over 20 years, to R. Wallace Services. The amounts varied, but they were consistent. The last payment was dated just 6 months before Leonard's death. He had been supporting them. He had been sending thousands of dollars to Ramona Wallace, to his hidden granddaughter, while I lived in blissful ignorance in our mansion. The realization was a physical blow. But why? Why the secrecy? Then, at the very bottom of the box, wrapped in crumbling tissue paper, I found it. A photograph. A young woman, vibrant and defiant, with Malia's exact eyes and smile, holding a toddler. On the back, in Leonard's sharp, familiar handwriting, were 4 words. Selena and Malia, 2 years old. Selena, not Ramona. The grandmother Malia had known as Ramona Wallace was, in fact, named Selena. Or, no, that wasn't right. The letter. There was a note tucked behind the photo. Shaky, feminine handwriting on a single sheet of paper. Mr. Leonard, Selena passed last month. Malia doesn't know about you. It's better this way. I've told her I'm her grandmother. If you want to honor your daughter's memory, let her be. Some secrets should stay buried. R.W. My head was spinning. So Selena was the mother. Ramona was the grandmother. Ramona had written to Leonard and he had paid her. He had loved his granddaughter from a distance, respecting the grandmother's wish to protect the child. It was a tragedy, but it wasn't a crime. I clutched the photo and the ledger copies to my chest, my mind racing. This was the proof. This was everything. I drove back to my apartment, the small box of evidence on the passenger seat. I felt not good, but purposeful. I had to show this to Malia. She deserved to know that her grandfather hadn't just abandoned her. He had loved her. I parked in my designated spot at the back of the low-rise apartment complex. I fumbled with my keys, my hands still shaking from the adrenaline. As I put the key in the lock, the door swung open. It wasn't locked. I froze. I lived alone. I always locked my door. I pushed the door open slowly. Hello? My voice was a thin thread. The apartment was a disaster. It wasn't just messy, it was violated. My cheap couch cushions were slashed. The contents of my kitchen drawers were dumped on the floor. My mattress was flipped over. Someone had been looking for something. I ran to the kitchen counter where I had left the box from the storage unit. It was gone. The photo of Selena and Malia, the ledger copies, the note from Ramona, everything. My breath came in ragged gasps. This wasn't a random burglary. They hadn't taken my small television or the $20 in my change jar. They had come for one thing, the one thing that connected Leonard to Malia. My eyes scanned the wreckage. Then I saw it. On my small kitchen table, held down by a salt shaker, was a single folded piece of paper, not a note from my storage box. This was new. My fingers trembled as I unfolded it. 5 words printed in block letters. "Stop looking, let it go." A cold dread, sharper than any grief I had felt, settled over me. This wasn't a distant tragedy. This was a present-day threat. Someone was still protecting Leonard's secrets, and they knew where I lived. My resolve hardened. They thought this would scare me? After losing everything, I had nothing left to fear, and they had just made a fatal mistake. They had shown me this was more than just a family secret. It was dangerous, and I was going to burn it to the ground. I didn't sleep. I sat in my wrecked apartment until the sun came up, the threatening note clutched in my hand. I had no proof, no photo, no ledgers. I had my memory, and I had the name of the only other person who might know the truth. Harrison Pierce, Leonard's business partner and, I had thought, his closest friend. I called him at 7 a.m. "Loretta?" he answered, his voice thick with sleep and surprise. "How are you holding up?" "I'm managing, Harrison. I need to ask you about Leonard's first wife." The silence on the other end of the line was immediate and cold. "Lucille, why on earth are you asking about that? That was a lifetime ago." "Because his granddaughter works with me," I said, my voice flat. "The one he was sending money to for 20 years. The one whose mother was named Selena. And last night, someone broke into my apartment and stole the proof." Another long, heavy pause. "Jesus, Loretta." He finally sighed, but there was no sympathy in it. "How did you find this out?" "I found the ledgers. I found the photo. Now they're gone." "Loretta," he said, and his voice shifted. It became the smooth, patronizing tone he used in boardrooms. "You've been through an immense trauma. Leonard's death, the shock of the finances. It's understandable that your mind might be grasping, creating connections." My hand tightened on the receiver. "Are you saying I'm crazy?" "I'm saying you're grieving," he said smoothly, "and you're becoming paranoid. Rummaging through the past is a bad idea. For your own good, for your own safety, you need to let this lie. Let the past rest, Loretta. There's nothing for you there but more pain." He hung up. It was a brick wall. He wasn't just dismissive. He was threatening. For your own safety. He knew. He knew, and he was part of it. I was desperate. I had no proof, and the only person who could corroborate my story was now part of the cover-up. I went to the diner. I had to try. Malia was in the break room, getting ready for her shift. "Malia, we need to talk," I said, my voice low and urgent. "Now, it's important." She looked up, surprised by my tone. "Of course, Mrs. Loretta. Is everything okay?" We sat at the small table, the smell of stale coffee thick in the air. I had no photo. I had no letter. I just had the story, and it sounded insane. "That necklace you wear," I began. "You said it was your mother's. Your mother was Selena. Your grandmother was Ramona." Malia's brow furrowed. "How do you know that?" "Because I knew your grandfather." I took a deep breath. "My late husband, Leonard. He was your mother's father. He was your grandfather." The color drained from her face. She didn't look shocked. She looked angry. "What are you talking about?" "I found a picture," I rushed on, "and ledgers. He was sending your grandmother money." "Stop." Her voice was sharp. "Stop talking. What is wrong with you?" "Malia, please, I'm trying to tell you." "Tell me what? That my whole life is a lie? Based on what? A necklace?" She stood up so quickly her chair clattered to the floor. "You're obsessed with that necklace, Mrs. Loretta. You're not well. My grandmother told me my parents were dead. She told me I had no other family. She was protecting you." "Protecting me from what?" "From you. You're a lonely old woman, and you're making up stories. Leave me alone." She grabbed her apron and stormed out of the break room, leaving me there, trembling and completely defeated. The next week was hell. Malia wouldn't look at me. She wouldn't speak to me. She traded shifts to avoid me. When we did cross paths, she looked through me, her face a mask of cold indifference. It was worse than her anger. It was dismissal. Simone pulled me aside. "Is there a problem between you and Malia? Because she's a good worker. You're not." I had failed. I had lost the proof, and I had alienated the only person I was trying to help. Harrison Pierce had won. I was just the crazy old woman. That night, I sat in my car in the diner parking lot. I had one more call to make, one more bluff. I dialed Harrison's number. "I told you not to call me again, Loretta." "I'm not asking for your help," I said, my voice as cold as his. "I'm giving you a warning. You had my apartment broken into. You took the box, but you're stupid." A pause. "What did you say?" "You took the box, but I remember the ledgers. I remember every payment. I remember R. Wallace Services. And I remember the name on the back of the photo, Selena. I'm going to the police, Harrison, and then I'm going to the press. You have 1 hour to meet me." I hung up. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would break through my ribs. It was a bluff, a total, desperate bluff. What would I tell the police? What press? I had nothing. I waited. 10 minutes, 20. My phone rang. It was Harrison. "Where are you?" His voice was no longer smooth. It was a panicked bark. "Milo's Diner parking lot, you have 40 minutes. He pulled up in his black Mercedes 20 minutes later, tires squealing. He got out and stalked over to my car, ripping my passenger door open. He wasn't the calm, patronizing executive. He was terrified. "You have no idea what you're doing," he hissed, sliding in beside me. "Who did you tell?" "Just you. For now." He stared at me, his face pale in the dim parking lot light. Then he reached inside his jacket and pulled out a thick manila envelope. "You want the truth, Loretta? You really want it?" He threw the envelope on the dashboard. "That's what you're looking for, and you're right. I had your apartment searched." My blood ran cold. You did that?" "I had to. I was trying to contain this, trying to protect Leonard's legacy, protect you from this." "Protect me?" "Yes, protect you. This is ugly, Loretta. Ugliest thing I've ever seen. What you found, that was just the surface. That was the nice version. Leonard paying to support his long-lost grandchild? That's a tragedy. The truth is a crime." He tapped the envelope. "These are the real documents, the ones he paid me to deeply archive after his death. I'm giving them to you now for one reason, not to help you, but to control this. I'd rather you have the full story from me than have you and the police digging it up piecemeal. Now listen." For the next hour, Harrison Pierce laid out the real story. It wasn't a tragedy, it was a horror. Leonard's first wife, Miranda, didn't just die young, Harrison said, his voice low. She died in childbirth, but there were complications. The doctors had warned about it for months. "What complications?" I whispered. "Miranda had a condition. The doctors recommended a specific intervention. Leonard refused. He wouldn't authorize it. He prioritized his own wishes over her safety." "You're saying he was responsible?" "Directly? No, but their daughter, Selena, believed he was. She was a rebellious kid, smart as a whip, looked just like her mother. When she turned 18, she got her hands on the medical records. She confronted him. She tried to sue. She went to the medical boards, to lawyers, trying to get justice for the mother she never knew. So what happened?" I asked, though I already dreaded the answer. "What do you think happened? Leonard had money. He had connections. He made her accusations go away." Harrison wouldn't look at me. He just stared out the windshield. And then he did something else to make sure she was discredited, to silence her, for good. What? I breathed. He had her declared mentally unstable. He had his own daughter committed to a private psychiatric facility. The world tilted. No. Yes. For 6 months. The official story was a grief-induced breakdown. The real reason was to shut her up. Harrison reached into the envelope and pulled out a single fragile letter, written on the letterhead of a psychiatric hospital. She wrote this while she was inside. She smuggled it out to Ramona Wallace. Ramona had been Miranda's best friend. With trembling hands, I took the letter. The handwriting was young, angry, and terrified. "Dear Ramona," it read, "by the time you get this, I'll be gone. Dad's lawyers say I can't leave until I'm stable, which means until I stop telling the truth about what he did to my mother. So I'm going to lie. I'm going to tell them they're right, that I was confused, that I don't blame him, and when they let me out, I'm disappearing. There's a man, Mitchell. Dad doesn't know about him. We're leaving together. We're going to start over where he can never find us. I'm pregnant, Ramona. I know. But maybe this baby can be the family he never let me have. If something happens, if he finds us, promise me you'll take my child. Don't let him destroy another generation. The necklace Mom left me, it's in your jewelry box. Give it to my daughter someday, so she knows she came from love, even if she can't know the truth. I love you, Selena." My hands were shaking so badly I could barely read. "Mitchell, Malia's father," Harrison said, "died in a car accident a few years later. Selena raised Malia alone, always looking over her shoulder. When Malia was 5, Selena knew Leonard was getting close, so she faked her own death. She gave Malia to Ramona, who legally adopted her and changed both their names. So when Ramona contacted Leonard, she never told him Selena was alive. She said Selena was dead, left an orphan. He believed it, and Ramona made him a deal. He could support his granddaughter from a distance, but if he ever tried to make contact, she would tell Malia everything. About Miranda, about the asylum, about him. He hadn't been a distant, loving grandfather. He had been a monster, paying hush money to protect his own skin. "Where is Selena now?" I whispered. "Dead," Harrison said grimly. "For real this time. Cancer. About 5 years ago." He took the documents back, put them in the envelope, and held it out to me. "Now you know. What you do with this, that's on you." I waited for Malia to get off her shift. I sat in my car in the dark, the heavy envelope on my lap. The weight of it was suffocating. Selena's letter, the asylum committal forms, the original restraining order Selena had filed against her own father. When Malia finally came out, she flinched when she saw me waiting by her car. She tried to walk past me. "Malia, wait, please." "I have nothing to say to you, Mrs. Loretta." "I know, and you were right not to believe me," I said, my voice hoarse. "I didn't have the whole truth. Now I do." She paused, her hand on her car door, and looked at me. She saw the envelope. She saw the look on my face. She unlocked her car. "Get in." We sat in her small, cold car, the engine off, the only light coming from the flickering street lamp overhead. "We need to talk," she said, her voice small. "Really talk." "I've been thinking," she said, her hands twisting in her lap, "about what you said, and things don't add up." "What kind of things?" "My grandma Ramona. She used to have terrible nightmares. She'd wake up screaming, begging someone named Selena to forgive her for keeping secrets." My heart ached. "And when she was dying," Malia continued, her voice trembling, "she made me promise. She said if I ever found out I had living family, I had to be careful. She said, some people who share your blood can still be dangerous." Malia looked at me, her eyes full of a pain that was too old for her young face. "What was she protecting me from, Loretta? What was so terrible she'd rather let me grow up an orphan?" I placed the heavy envelope on the console between us. "This is going to be difficult," I said softly. For the next hour, I told her everything. Not my story, but her mother's. The death of Miranda, the fight for justice, the asylum, the letter, the escape, the faked death. I laid the documents out on the dashboard, the proof. Malia listened, her face growing paler and paler, her hand gripping the emerald necklace at her throat. When I finished, she sat in silence for a long time, just staring at her mother's shaky handwriting. "So, she's dead," Malia whispered. "Really dead?" "Yes, 5 years ago. Cancer." "So I never had a chance," she choked out, "not because she abandoned me, but because she died protecting me. From him." Her voice was hollow. "Safe from my own grandfather, safe from your husband." I flinched. It was the truth. "I didn't know, Malia," I whispered, tears streaming down my own face. "I swear to you, I lived with that man for 43 years, and I had no idea what he was." She turned and looked at me, and the anger was gone. All that was left was a vast shared emptiness. "I believe you," she said quietly. "You lost everything when he died, didn't you? The house, the money, all of it." I nodded. "Bad investments, the lawyers said. Debts I knew nothing about." "Do you think he planned it?" she asked, her voice sharp. "Kept you poor, kept you dependent, so you'd never ask the wrong questions?" I had to close my eyes. "I don't know, maybe." "So," she said, leaning her head back against the seat, "we're both his victims." "Yes," I said, "I think we are." We sat in silence. Then she reached over and her hand trembling touched my arm. "What happens now?" "We decide," I said, covering her hand with my own. "We decide what our family looks like. Together." We didn't go to work the next day, or the day after. We sat in my apartment, which Malia helped me clean, and we read every word. We pieced together the life of Selena, the bravery of Ramona, the tragedy of Miranda. The next week, I called Harrison Pierce. "She knows," I said, "and we're not going to the police." I heard him exhale, a long hiss of relief. "That's wise, Loretta. We're not doing it for you. We're doing it for ourselves. We're not letting his name be dragged through the mud. We're erasing it. But I have one more question." "What?" "Were there others? Other women he silenced?" The pause was long. "Harold, Lucille, let it go. You've been through enough." "That's not your decision to make, Harrison. If there are other victims, they deserve to know they aren't alone. What's the name?" He sighed. "Elena Martinez." "No, Evelyn. Evelyn Morales. Worked at the company in the early 90s. Filed a harassment complaint. He made it go away, destroyed her credibility, got her blacklisted. She took a settlement and disappeared. Moved to Oregon, I think." "Thank you, Harrison. Don't call me again." 6 months later, I stood in Malia's new apartment, a bright, sunny one-bedroom she'd gotten after enrolling in community college. She was studying business management, a fire in her eyes I'd never seen before. I'd helped with the tuition, using the small settlement I'd finally managed to secure from one of Leonard's hidden accounts. She was arranging flowers in a vase. "Are you nervous?" I asked. "A little," she said, "but mostly, I'm ready." Today, we were meeting Evelyn Morales. It had taken us months to find her. She was a therapist in Portland specializing in workplace trauma. When we finally reached her, when we told her our story, she had cried on the phone for an hour. Not from pain, she'd said, but from relief. That after 30 years, someone finally believed her. Meeting her was like looking at another piece of the puzzle. She was in her 50s now, strong and kind. The three of us sat in a coffee shop, 3 women from 3 different generations, all connected by the same man's cruelty. We shared our stories. We cried. And for the first time, we all felt a little bit lighter. We weren't alone. The next day, Malia and I drove to a small cemetery just outside the city. It had taken Harrison's help one last time to find her. Selena's grave was simple, marked with the false name Ramona had given her. We had 2 bouquets, white roses for Miranda, whose grave we couldn't find, and yellow roses for Selena. Malia knelt, placing her flowers on the granite. She touched the carved letters. "Hi, Mom," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I brought someone to meet you." I knelt beside her, my old knees screaming, my heart full. "Hello, Selena," I said. "I'm so sorry it took us so long." Malia cried, but they weren't the tears I'd seen in the parking lot. These were tears of gratitude. "I understand now," she said to the headstone, "why you did it, why you gave me to Grandma Ramona. You saved me from him. You protected me. And you made sure I knew I came from love, even when you couldn't tell me the truth." She reached for my hand. "And I'm not alone anymore," she said, her voice stronger. "Loretta is here. She's teaching me about our family, about you and about Grandma Miranda." She turned to me, her eyes shining. "She's been the grandmother I never thought I'd have." The words hit me with the force of a physical blow. I pulled her into my arms and we just held each other, 2 broken women piecing ourselves together on the quiet grass. When we finally separated, Malia reached into her purse. "I have something for you," she said. It was a small, framed photograph. It was her and me, taken a few weeks ago at the diner. We were laughing, caught in a moment of unguarded joy. "Evelyn took this," she explained. "She said she wanted to document what healing looks like." I took the photo, my hands trembling. "Turn it over," she said. On the back, in Malia's careful, strong handwriting, it read, "Loretta and Malia Bradford, 2024. Sometimes the family you choose is stronger than the family you're born into." Bradford, I whispered. It was my maiden name. The name I'd had before I ever met Leonard. "Maya, you—" "I wanted to," she said, her voice firm. "Wallace was a disguise. Williams, whatever name Leonard's father had, that was a curse. Bradford, that feels like home. It feels like us." That evening, we had dinner at her apartment. It had become our new tradition. As we were washing the dishes, Malia said something that shocked me. "I forgive him." I almost dropped the plate I was drying. "Malia, you don't have to." "I'm not doing it for him," she said, turning to face me. "I'm doing it for me, for us. I won't let his choices, his fear, his secrets, I won't let them poison this. He chose control instead of love, and in the end, he died alone, with nothing." She was right. He had died in a hospital room and I had sat by his bed, a dutiful wife, not knowing that the one person who was his true legacy was working a night shift just a few miles away. "You're wiser than I am," I told her. "I'm still working on the forgiveness part." "That's okay," she said, pulling me into a hug. "We have time." As I drove home that night, I thought about the strange, cruel journey. A necklace passed down from a woman who died too young, to a daughter who fought too hard, to a granddaughter who had been kept in the dark. A necklace that, by some miracle, had found its way to a greasy diner, and to me. It had been a key, unlocking a prison of secrets. Malia was right. We had time. Time to build the family that should have been. Time to honor the women who came before us. And time to finally be free. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from, or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.